Okay. Om Sadashivasamaramabham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Okay. Now, any questions, clarifications, or it's fine? Ninth verse we had seen last time. Okay. So the 80th verse. Okay. Okay. He says, Rajavat Sakshi Matratvat Sannidhya Dramako Yatha Brahmayan Jagat Atmaham Nishkriyo Akarako Vadvayaha. Rajavat Sakshi Matratvad. Like the king sits in his court, olden days, okay? And the ministers, etc., carry out whatever has to be carried out, all in the king's name. He rarely has to say anything or interfere in anything. Okay? Yeah. So, therefore, Sannidhi Matrena. His presence, everything starts. Without his presence, nothing starts. It is not like modern parliaments, okay, where the chief minister or the prime minister need not be present. No work happens within the parliament. All work happens outside the parliament. Okay. Parliament is only for formalizing certain things. That is modern democracy. Okay. But olden times, Sannidhi Matrena, with the presence, things happen. Okay. Okay, things happen. Okay. Or like a magnet, he says, Sannidha Matrena Dramako Yatha. A magnet just has to be present there. It does not do anything to attract the iron filings. Presence of the magnet is enough. So similarly, two examples to show how the body and mind at the individual level and the universe and the cosmic order at the total level functions, gaining its existence and sentiency from the consciousness. Both. It gains its existence from the consciousness, it gains its sentiency also from the consciousness. Yeah. The whole universe is nothing but forms of existence. Now, when I give an example of a book or of a table, etc., they are simpler, they are not complex systems. Therefore, it is easier to see that they are forms of existence. But just because a process is a bit more complicated doesn't mean the fundamental fact that it's a form of existence changes. And the mind, the same, sentiency of the mind, same thing. The body is sentient because there is a mind associated with it. The mind is sentient because there is consciousness backing it up. And why is the consciousness consciousness? Because it's consciousness. Okay. Yeah. That's like asking why is the fire hot? Because it's hot. You can ask the question why the fire is hot only if you can show me fire which is not hot. Okay. Similarly, the nature of consciousness is to be conscious. Now, when it manifests, it appears slightly different. It appears different. Consciousness in a body appears as living, life, sentient, capable of knowing, thinking, etc. All these are manifested consciousness. Manifests in the mind and taking on the nature of the mind, it becomes like this. taking on the nature of the body, is capable of seeing, etc. Feeling, touch, all these things. But the whole thing happens what? What does the consciousness have to do to make the body alive? Or the mind sentient? Nothing. Nothing. The mind may have certain process. The body will have certain process. But I consciousness, there is no process, it's conscious, that's it. In the presence of that, everything becomes conscious. Either existing or conscious. In the presence of that, Arey Baba, your whole existence is dependent on that. What about presence? You are a form of existence. The whole universe is a form of existence. And what am I? Existence, that is consciousness. Therefore, the existence of everything is dependent on me, consciousness. And if there are sentient things, that is because of me. That mind, etc., is capable of manifesting consciousness. That is the nature of matter. Some matter is subtle, therefore it can manifest consciousness. Some matter is gross, it cannot manifest. The whole example of mind, your mirror and sand, both are silica. Silica in the form of a mirror can reflect your face. Silica in the form of sand cannot reflect your face. That's all. The difference is only there. The old example given was, you have when you are making a temple or a building, there is some polished granite there. It generally does not reflect your face. But you put some water on top of it, it reflects. Similarly, the body generally does not reflect consciousness, but with the mind introduced there, it reflects consciousness. So any process you can talk about will belong to the mind and body, not to consciousness. Any happening that you will talk about will belong to the mind and body, not to me, the consciousness. Any impingement from the external world that you will talk about will belong to the mind and body, not to consciousness. Any reaction, response to the world will belong to the mind and consciousness, mind and body, not to the consciousness. All the way. Akarta, abhokta, in other words. Does not receive anything, does not do anything. But allows all things to happen. Because without the consciousness, nothing can happen. That's the beauty of it. Without the consciousness, nothing is there. Itself does nothing. It does nothing, but everything happens in it. It does nothing, but everything happens in it. So that is the very nature of consciousness, okay? That is why he says, Brahmayan Jagat Atmaham. Aham Brahmayan Jagat. I make the world go round. I make the world go round, he says. As consciousness, I make the world go round. Nishkriyaha akarako advayaha. Nishkriyaha, free from all actions. Akarakaha, not even an instrument of action, etc. Not subject, not object, not instrument, none of those things. No action is located in me. Advayaha, there is nothing other than me. This may be a good time to remind you, what is the technical definition of Advayam? भूल गया रहेगा, इसके लिए याद दिलाता हूँ. Technical definition of Advayam.
Advaitam?
Advaitam and Advayam is one and the same. You are giving me another word. Technical definition. Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Swagata, Bheda, Rahitam. This is a technical definition, okay? Sajatiya Bheda, difference of its own kind, within its own kind. Like we are all human beings, but there are differences among us. Rahitam, free from that. Vijatiya Bheda Rahitam. Vijatiyam will be another kind. Animal life, plant life. Vijatiyam. There is nothing other than me anyway. What are you talking about? Okay. Swagata Bheda Rahitam. Swagata meaning within yourself. One body, but two hands, two legs, one trunk, one head, etc. Swagata Bheda. That's also Rahitam. It's a homogeneous whole. Therefore, Advaitam or Advayam is Swagata, Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Bheda, Rahitam. Technical definition, important to remember that. Okay. This is Advayam. No internal differences, no external differences, no similarity differences. That means what is the only thing that is there? That means if you negate all these differences, what is left? Only you are there. Nothing else is there. Other things are appearances. Remember, we are not saying you are not experiencing other things. Because you are experiencing other things, we are forced to say all these things. Why? Because you take the experience as real. This is one strong concept in human minds. Experience means reality. That's one thing we have to break. Experience does not mean reality. If you look at all your experience that you are having, most of it is not based on reality. A rising sun, setting sun, not real. Flat earth, not real. Your understanding of people, etc., you think that's exactly what the person is? Never. It's your, especially romantic love, half the time is your projection. Yeah, it's your projection. Yeah. That's why in olden days, you matched horoscopes, etc., and got married. Why? 50% job is satisfied. Teamwork is taken care of well. Because fates match. When somebody is having a good time, the other person may have a bad time. So, bad time person can be pulled up by the good time person, etc. So, as a couple, personality is matching. 50% teamwork taken care of. Intimacy you have to work on. But that you learn to work on when you live together, etc. You learn to develop it. It worked. In a love marriage, intimacy starts first. Romance and intimacy starts first. But teamwork can be very, very difficult because you have different personalities. Too different. Opposites attract very well, yes. But opposites to live together, oh my God. Like I am a very laid back person, okay, aram se. Samjhi, what is all the paper doing there? I had read it and kept it there. But why to put it away? Ho jayega. And you are married to a person because you romantically fell in love with a person who is very organized, very disciplined. Both of you will have a tough time with each other. Yeah. Because the whole thing will go haywire. So the love will die in the pots and pans of the kitchen. Joking. Okay, what I'm trying to say is experience is not based on reality. Like I was counseling a couple and the girl tells me, this is not the man I married. And the guy turns around and says, Swamiji, for the last 20 years she has been changing me. How can I be the same man she married? I'm joking, okay? Don't take all my comments on marriage, etc. very seriously. But there is a point in it. That your experience is not based on reality. Yeah. Then you will come to a guru also, same thing. This is not what I expected out of a guru. What did you expect? He's pointing out all my faults. What else do you expect? Last chance. But he is also not free from faults. Which guru claims to be infallible anyway? None of us do. So, this is your experience of life. Then we have ideas of everyone. This is what the government should do. Correct. That's your idea what the government should do. But the guy who got the majority has his own idea what he should be doing. But that is wrong. Then why don't you become the Prime Minister? Stand for elections, win the election. Because if you were the Prime Minister, you would do what you want. What you think is right. Let us give benefit of doubt to everyone. What you think is right. So this guy is also doing what he thinks is right. And he's got the majority to back him up. And if the majority of people don't think he is right, then next election he will go. I mean, it's very simple. But you know, we keep taking our experiences as absolute, you know. That is a problem. Yeah. That is a problem. But Swamiji, I can have my own opinion. Of course you can have your own opinion. Who says no? India is a free country. You can not only have your opinion, you can express it as well. Only thing is your expression is only on the Facebook or Twitter. And you have a few people who will do the hula hoop and be your cheerleaders also. That's all. That's your experience of it. You can feel good about it. Nice, acha. I always like people feeling good about themselves. Now, is that all reality? All that we talked about, is it reality? It is some experiences. He's got some experiences. Yeah. Some opinions, some experiences. And if there are 100 different opinions about one thing, that shows nobody knows the reality of it anyway. If there are 100 different opinions that this is a book, nobody knows this is a book. That this is a book is not an opinion. It is a definition given a framework. Within that framework, that this is a book holds true. Shift the framework, it goes off. Because all definitions are within frameworks, not outside frameworks. You have to presume a lot of things before you can have a definition. Under these conditions, under these things, under this thing, under this thing. Yeah. Which makes it very easy for people to live in the world of their own without any touch with reality. That's okay. That's okay. Good. I mean, As I said, India is a free country, you live as you want. But some of you keep repeating India is a free country, there is no freedom in India. No freedom in India. You can abuse the government, you can abuse the country, you can abuse the PM, you can abuse everyone. Nothing happens to you. And you say there is no freedom. If you want to see lack of freedom, go to China, then you will understand. Go to China, then you will know what lack of freedom is. Russia has improved a little bit now compared to when it was Soviet Union. Not much, but it has improved. Yeah. Go to Indonesia. Go to Iran. And go to certain sections of Afghanistan that is under Taliban control. Then you will understand what freedom is and what freedom is not. So what I am trying to say is, our experience is not reality. But in our minds, we take experience as reality. This equation is what one needs to break. Vedanta will be clear only if this is done. That's experience reality business. And the tragedy is there are some people who are present. Vedanta also has an experience. It's the biggest tragedy of them all. I know the book because I experience the book. Anyone says that? There are people who say that. Who have no understanding what epistemology is will say that. I am experiencing the book. You are seeing the book. What is the experience there? It's a perception. It's purely cognitive. It's cognitive. Similarly, knowing yourself, you are supposed to know yourself. Experiencing yourself, you have done all the time anyway. When are you not experiencing yourself? Tell me. Do you not see yourself as a conscious being? Not as consciousness, but as a conscious being, as someone who is alive. Even if it is Sunday morning and the coffee has just started working. Yeah. Especially those who are joining in from UK, it must be very early morning there. I'm sure none of you have had your breakfast and all. It's too early. You had your coffee and you're sitting down. Yeah. Good. What I'm trying to say is this link, experience is reality, needs to be broken. Then Vedanta works better. There's a better chance for Vedanta to work. That's why he says, Nishkriyo akarakaho advaya. Akarakaha, I am neither the subject, object, instrument, place, location of action, etc. Yeah. Action happens. That is why in the Gita you will say, Karmani akarmaya pashyet. Akarmani cha karmayaha. The second part even more important. Akarmani cha karmayaha. Who sees freedom from action in action. One who sees that actionless in action, who sees that person, buddhiman manisheshu, that person is wise, he says. Same way here, akarakaha, advayaha, nothing other than me. There is nothing other than me. I am partless, I am a homogeneous whole. I don't have parts. That I don't have parts is important, because the moment you have parts, you are finite. Because this part multiplied by 1,000,000,000 times is you. Part means finitude, remember that. That which is unconditioned by time and space. That is Anantam, that is Anandam, that is Advayam. Yeah. Okay. Then he goes ahead, because he has to unfold what the Atma is. Nirgunam Nishkriyam Nityam Nirdvandvam Yan Niramayam Shuddham Buddham Tata Muktam Tad Brahma asmi iti dharayet. Tad Brahma aham asmi iti dharayet. Aham understood there, okay. That Brahman is myself. That when you first started studying Vedanta was presented as something to be understood, something to be achieved, something to be known. Brahman was presented as Jneyam, thing to be known. Because how do you come to study Vedanta? Either out of a curiosity, all right. But that curiosity, if you are studying Vedanta out of a curiosity, there is no commitment and fire to it. When you study Vedanta with the understanding of that I, as a finite being, I have a lot of existential issues. I have a lot of problems to be dealt with. As a human being, not food, clothing, shelter, that we share with the animals. In fact, the animals are better off. Why? Clothing is taken care of, no, for them. Their skin is their clothing. Just imagine two elephants looking at the prehistoric elephant, the hairy mammoth, remember, with all the, and telling each other, those days body hair was in fashion. Okay. Among human beings also it is like that. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to go into all that. I have to refrain, otherwise I'll be digressing too much. Therefore, when you study Vedanta with the recognition of a problem of being human, okay, the problem of being a human being, that is the existential issue. Isolation, loneliness, big issue. Swamiji, I don't have isolation, etc. in COVID times. Too many people around me all the time. Then you must be free from loneliness. No, but I feel lonely. Why? You have people all the time along with you. But we can't get along, you know. Yeah. So you can have people all around you, but you can't get along, nobody understands you, etc. Loneliness. That's called isolation. That's called being disconnected. That is human problem. A wolf in the wolf pack doesn't feel lonely. There is no problem of another wolf not understanding him or her. Yeah, there is no problem there. They understand each other very well, they function as a team very well. They can take down a lion also as a pack. No problems. Teamwork, etc. Perfect. No issues. But imagine an office team working together. कितना प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है? Family team working together, oh my God, even worse. Family team means husband, wife, children, in-laws. Yeah. Why? Isolation, disconnectedness is natural. Why? Because you are a human being. You are a finite entity and a thinking entity. And your thoughts will be different from others. Yeah. So when you recognize this human problem of finitude has no solution in the world. That's why, you know, in the last 20, 30 years, if you look at it, how many self-improvement books are available? Better communication, better relationship, how to love better, how to do this better, how to... They corporatized families also. Mission statement for families. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective Families. There is a point in it. That's like in the Big Bang Theory, Sheldon's relationship agreement. That if one of us falls ill, the other person has the responsibility to take care of the one who is ill. ये सब लिखना पड़ता है. Do you really have to write it down? Really, do you have to write it down? But all these books came up why? Because people recognize that as a human being we have issues, and no amount of this will really, they'll help you manage the issues. They'll never solve the issue. They'll help you manage all these things. I have examined the whole gamut of books available. All of them can help. I do relationship workshops. I used to do a lot of corporate training. Every week a couple of workshops, at least. Sometimes 7-day week, 6 days was workshop, morning to evening, morning to evening, morning to evening. Same topic, unless I would have team building coming out of my ears. Because standardization across the groups, same program has to be done. All this will help to a point. But the isolation of a human being, your sense of finitude is not going to go. You learn to handle your work culture better. You learn to handle your relationship better. Agreed. They have a point. They have a purpose. Not more than that. And if things don't work out, they'll show you how to break up also better. Whether it's a company or a marriage. Correct. That's also necessary. No? That's also necessary. The days of joining a company as your first job and remaining right through the company is almost gone. Almost gone. Some companies are still there. Yeah. Good companies where they train people to come up the ranks, etc. It is there. But a handful. Handful. So you have to say goodbye to your company. And nowadays you are saying goodbye to relationships also. First wife after 15 years, goodbye. Second wife after 15 years, goodbye. Third wife, I don't know. You all know whom I am talking about. But if I mention the name, say this is because he is of a different religion, you are talking like that. If he was my religion also, I would talk the same. Amir Khan. At that time comes when you have to say goodbye for whatever reason. So all these will help, but the human issue of finitude doesn't go. No, Swamiji, the first wife didn't understand me well. But you are madly in love? Yes. I thought I had found my soulmate. Then what happened? In 15 years, I discovered she is not my soulmate. All right, understand me, you said goodbye. Next one, that really was my soulmate. After 15 years? In fact, there is very interesting, there is a great book called A Bridge Across Forever. It's a great book on relationships. It is written by Richard Bach, the author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull. That is his first book. Okay. That was his first book. Second book, I think, was Illusions. Third book was Flight. I read all his books, okay. Very good writer. If you read his Bridge Across Forever, you will think, my God, what a relationship he has built up. Very well built up. But after some years, they decided to part ways. Why? We have learnt enough from each other, there is nothing left to learn. That's a good way of saying it, okay? It's a good way of saying it. Only it brings back to my point that none of them will give you the fulfillment that you are seeking. Moksha is not gained through a relationship. Moksha is not gained through work. Ananda is not gained through all that. Certain satisfaction, etc., you will gain through all of them. Companionship, satisfaction, etc., is there in all the things that you do. Then when you realize that there has to be something more, I am seeking fulfillment, and that I am not getting from any of these things, pariksha loka, and you examine life well. And then when you come to study Vedanta, that study has an edge. So sometimes we teachers make a habit of joking about life, And I used to make so much of joke about marriage that a young girl who used to attend my class, who is very happily married now, and at the same time she knows the limitations of marriage, everything very well, and she's a great student of Vedanta. Actually that time came and asked me, Swamiji, are you really against marriage? Because she was going to get married. And I converted that to another joke. I'm sure she remembers it. I said, no, of course not. I want everyone to get married. Why? Because there will be one more house for me to go and say, Bhavate Bhiksham Dehi. But it is admirable that one weekend she got married and the next weekend she was there in my class with her husband. That was very admirable to see. Okay, I'm speaking about Nisha. Okay, she's here. How many years ago, Nisha? 15?
Yeah.
15 years ago?
Yeah,
16.
16 years,
Yeah, 16 years ago. So you understand that none of this is going to give you the fulfillment you are seeking. All of them will give you a certain amount of satisfaction, certain joy, certain this thing that makes life livable, manageable. Then when you come to study Vedanta, Brahman is presented as Jneyam, something to be known. If you want to seek that fulfillment, etc., know Brahman as non-different from you, because you are all that you seek, therefore you must know yourself. Presented as Jneyam. And when you are as a sought, something that you are seeking, and when you understand, what do you discover? The seeker and the sought are one and the same. Aham Brahmasmi iti. Aham Brahmasmi iti avadharayet. Okay. Iti dharayet. What type of Brahman? Okay. That also is making it clear. Okay. Nirgunam. Nirgunaha. Free from any quality. Because the moment you attribute a quality, you make it a finite entity. Let us say you give it a quality of color. It is green. That means what? All the other colors it is not, it is finite. Na? Correct or not? So any quality you give anything. But what about Satyam Jnanam Anantam? That's not quality, that's very nature. Is heat a quality of fire, or is heat the nature of fire? Come on guys. Is heat the nature of fire or a quality of fire?
Nature.
Is nature, exactly, not a quality. Why? Because combustion is fire. Combustion is heat. Yeah. Combustion means heat. Therefore, there is nothing like quality, it's nature. Similarly, Satyam Jnanam Anantam is nature. Therefore, no gunas, nirgunaha. Nirgunaha. Nishkriyam, no functioning. How can the infinite function? What is functioning? Minimum movement. Na? Movement means what? From a place it is there to a place it is not there. My hand. Function, it moves from here to here. It's a function. Why? Because it was here, it was not there here. Now it moved here. Function is possible only for finite entities. Can space go for a walk and come back? You can go for a walk in space and come back. Earth, on the surface of the earth, space and come back. Or if you're an astronaut, you can go for a spacewalk and come back. But space cannot go for a walk and come back. Nishkriyaha, nishkriyam. Nityam, free from the limitations of time. If you are free from the limitations of space, you are free from the limitation of time automatically. Yeah. Because otherwise you don't become limitless. Anantam means that, free from the limitations of time and space. Nityam. Nirdvandvam, free from any sense of duality that we saw in the previous verse also. Nirdvandvam, there is no other than me. The problem of the other doesn't exist. Literally also, okay, the problem of the other doesn't exist because there is no other. There is no other. Okay. Yat niramayam. Niramayam. Okay. Free from any emotional issues. Ajnanam onwards. No sadness, no guilt, no hurt, no pain. Your mind can go through all this, not the eye that watches that mind. Not the eye that is aware of that mind. I am free from all guilt, all hurt, all unhappiness, all limitations, all anxiety, all worry. So somebody asked me once, Swamiji, you don't get worried about anything. I said, I don't let the worried mind worry me. और क्या बोलेगा? So, I am ya niramayam. Then positively the same thing is being said. Shuddham. Shuddha meaning pure. Pure means what? Now when you use the word pure in English, it's got all sorts of connotations. Okay. Why? Because we are all convent educated and we have all that stupid ideas of sin, etc. put into our mind. Okay. You know, when I am looking for sand, silica for a scientific experiment, even gold can be an impurity. Well, I want silica, not aurum, not gold. I want silica, sand. So then, when I am looking for sand, gold is an impurity. That means what? I can be contaminated if only there is something other than me of the same degree of reality. Gold can be contaminated with a lot of other things. Iron can be contaminated with a lot of other things. That's why you get iron ore. You mine iron ore and you have to melt it down, no? Removing all the impurities. You do the same thing with gold. You do the same thing with anything. Here what happens? I am that consciousness, there is nothing other than me to contaminate me. What is there other than me? Samajik, what will you not be limited by non-existence? Your existence, no? Your existence consciousness. Would you not be limited by non-existence? How will you answer that? Once in a way, it's good to throw a question at the students also. वो सुन के जा रहा है, सुन के जा रहा है, थोड़ा डल हो जाता है. How do you answer that?
You can't be limited by something that doesn't exist.
Good one. Non-existence doesn't exist. If it exists, it depends upon existence. If it doesn't exist, it doesn't limit existence anyway. Because there is nothing like non-existence. Non-existence is only conceptual. My head exists, but the horn on it doesn't exist, like a rhinoceros horn, you know. Just imagine what will happen if I had a horn like that. or two of them, like Hellboy. If you have seen that comic character, no? Hellboy. Two nice ones. As it is, some of my students are scared of me. If I had that also, abhi kya bolega? Why they are scared of me, I don't know, but they are very hesitant sometimes to ask something. So that concept, it's a concept. It doesn't exist. The horn exists on a buffalo. My head exists. The combination doesn't exist. So two concepts combined together doesn't exist. Therefore, all ideas of non-existence are conceptual. There is nothing like pure shunya. Even though the Buddhists prefer to call the reality as shunya, I had a discussion with a lot of them. And they all agreed, yeah, when we say shunya, we don't really mean shunya. We need absence of everything else. Fair enough. Absence of, therefore that shunya is nirgunam actually. What we call as nirgunam is what they mean by shunya. So I gave them a good word to translate. Instead of nothingness, translate it as non-conceptual reality. Reality which is not conceptual. Because anything you talk about reality is conceptual. No? So non-conceptual. They thought I was giving a new word. The old word in the Shastra, nirgunam. Yeah. I'm just giving it a different connotation, that's all. कुछ नया नहीं है वेदांता में, सब पुराना ही है, पुरानी बात है. So you can sing छोड़ो बात पुरानी etc. for other things in life, not for Vedanta, okay? Vedanta सब पुरानी बात ही है, okay? All right, therefore, nirgunam, nishkriya, shuddham, buddham. Buddha meaning of the nature of pure consciousness. Buddha doesn't mean wise here in this context. Okay? One who knows this is considered Buddha. Be careful how you pronounce that word, not Buddha. Because I have known young people also who have known it. Buddha. Okay. Buddham. Buddha meaning Jnana Swarupam, Chaitanya Swarupam iti Buddham. Tatha Muktam, not bound by anything. You started studying Vedanta thinking you are a bound entity, and when you understand Vedanta, you understand there is no bondage. Not that you got free from bondage, never were you bound. It is not the bound one becoming free, because if the bound one becomes free, he can get bound again. Then you will have to say, eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. That is true as far as the country is concerned. That is true as far as your individual lives, your functioning lives are concerned. Otherwise, you will find yourself like Shrek. What to do today? All such type of examples are coming in my mind. He was an ogre. That was, people were terrified of him. Then he got married to the princess. And then he got domesticated, tamed. Then children come to see him and say, hey, give me a yell, give me a Shrek, give me this thing. He became a clown and entertainer. Vedanta teachers also have to be careful of that. Okay. In your functioning life, anyone has to be careful of that. But we are talking about your Swarupa. Always free. Whether you are bound or in your functional life, whether you are bound or free, you are ever free. You are never bound. None of the limitations touch what you are. You are that limitless consciousness. Never are you bound by anything, including ignorance. It is because of you, the consciousness, your mind is aware that there is ignorance. You are aware of what you know and what you don't know. Therefore, even in the state of ignorance, when your mind is in the state of ignorance, you are free, muktaha. Atma is nitya muktaha, always free, never bound. Therefore, it is the deluded one who is thinking who is bound, discovers what? Not freedom, discovers I am never bound. It doesn't discover freedom, discovers I am never bound. Yeah. Nitya muktaha tat brahmasmi ahamasmi iti. That is the Brahman I am. Clear, or are there any questions with any of the words? If there are any questions with any of the words, please ask. Okay. Clear all of them?
Ji.
Okay. Okay. They're clear. Let's go ahead. Okay, now, after this, little bit talking about how you know also. Because one thing never to be forgotten, that should be drilled in, okay, is what Vedanta does is bring about a cognitive change in you, not an experiential change. Experiential changes in people can be highly subjective. Experience does change you. You can't say experience doesn't change you. Okay. It depends on what was your attitude with which you went through the experience. What was your attitude after you went through the experience? Okay. It depends on a lot of these factors. Okay. Like, remember my old story about this padri who was going around speaking about the ill effects of drinking, and he takes a worm, puts in a glass of water, worm is happily swimming around. Then he takes the same worm and puts it into a glass of whiskey, and the worm dies. So, my brothers, what do you learn from this? Father, I have learned a very important lesson. What is that, my son? If you drink whiskey, you will have no worms in your stomach. Subject to interpretation. Experience is subject to interpretation. What the Padri wanted to convey was one thing, and what the guy learned was completely opposite. Now, do you really think after that thing, the Padri can make him understand that drinking is bad for you? He was waiting for something to justify his drinking. And now he's got the perfect example for it. My experience supports what I've been thinking. This is how people go through life, okay? It's a joke as far as that guy is concerned, but many of us go through life like that. We are looking for validation in our experience, validation of our thinking. Because you rather be right than be happy. Two wrong relationships, all men are dogs. Two wrong relationship, all women are, I don't want to say. Okay. This guy goes to a therapist. He's in prison, okay? You're prone to anger, uncontrolled aggression. 4 times you have to be hauled upon this, that. The therapist is telling the prisoner. And the prisoner looks at her and says, ma'am, in 40 years of my life, I have got into 4 fights. 4 bloody fights. Why are you judging me on the basis of 4 fights in 40 years? I thought that guy had more sense than the therapist. So, when you go through certain experiences, it does change you. But that is highly subjective, how the change happens, how you handle it. Unless you have a great deal of objectivity, experiential learning can have its own issues, like anything else. If you are very objective, then experiences of life, and you have a learning mind and an objective mind, that's also important. Because you are not looking to justify your point of view. Like, why do you get into discussions with people? Because you want to broaden your scope. No? Now, I have somebody in my life who's threatening to be my student. Okay? He thinks he's expert in the field of politics. He has got some knowledge of politics. I accept that. So, some of his posts pop up on my Facebook. Now, I am not active on Facebook. So sometimes I will give him the opposite view in private, respecting his feelings, on a WhatsApp message. Why? Hey, what's the discussion about if you can't appreciate opposite viewpoints? I did that 2-3 times and he got so upset. I am not going to discuss politics with you now. Did I ask you to discuss politics with me? I didn't ask you. But in today's society, we all are socio-politically aware. So there are a million different opinions. And discussing these million different opinions is what broadens our perspective, hopefully. Hopefully. But if you take a stand like that, you become very subjective. So experiences in life are like that. Only if you are objective, you have a sense of vairagya towards your own viewpoints, toward your own thinking, is there a chance for you to learn from experiences and grow. Therefore, very often, these experiences in life changes me, true, but the change is not always growth. It can make me embittered. It can make me regret life. Regret the things that I have done. Instead of saying, hey, I did that, I made a mistake, I learned, I am wiser today. Instead of saying that, you are only full of regrets. What is the point? But I did so many wrong things. Make amends, come on. You are a better human being today than what you were then when you made all these mistakes. They are not mistakes, they were deliberately done. I knew it was wrong. All right, you knew it was wrong and you did a wrong thing. So, prayaschitta, make up, make amends. That's fine, be free. But they are dead and gone. That's why we have religious prayaschitta. Handle that. Then in experience you will grow. Otherwise, where will you grow with experiences? You will only justify your weaknesses and remain stuck. But at the same time, look at a cognitive change that brought about in your life. Anything. When you discover a fact of life, functioning, okay, what happens to your mind? It grows, it gets a broader perspective. After that, it's very difficult to stuff it back to its old perspective, isn't it? So, a cognitive change is generally, not always, generally, more growth oriented, because you are discovering certain facts. If they are facts, okay, cognitive change, the cognition has to be cognition. It has to be prama, not brahma. A cognition can be of two types. One is prama, knowledge, and one is brahma, error. We are not talking about erroneous cognition. We are talking about factual cognitions. It's a cognition of a fact. Like, to give an example, this person was thinking all this COVID, etc. is nonsense. Then a doctor friend of him showed him slides, etc., screenshots of X-ray of the lungs, this, that, etc., where you see how the damage. Now he has discovered a fact. Oh, the whole thing changes now, no? A cognitive fact. He doesn't have to experience COVID to know it. If everyone has to experience COVID to know it, half the world will not survive. What is mortality rate in India? 2%. 1.1%, something like that now. But on an average is some 2% or something. Imagine 2% of the whole population going off. Yeah, whole population, okay. We are talking of 2% of the tested cases, okay. Of the active cases, 2% mortality rate. 2% of the whole, it's too much. Yeah. We are talking about then we are talking about what? Crores of people. We are 130 crores and 2% of that will be what? 2.1 crore, something like that. Over 2 crores of people. Imagine that 2 crores of death in India alone. Yeah. So all of us don't have to go experience, cognitively understand it. If you cognitively understand, the change is generally positive. Whereas experiential change that creates out of experience can swing both ways. It can swing both ways. You see the horrors of war, experience it. So after that, what do you do? Become a pacifist, or maintain a stronger, bigger army? What will you do? You experience the horrors of war, okay? Experience. And war, believe me, there is no glory. Glorification is done by the poets. The people who go through the war know the horrors of war well. So you went through the horrors of war and you found it almost traumatic. Okay. So you are the ruler of the country now. Do you become a pacifist or you build up a stronger army? Learn from history. What will you do? Yeah, Kavita.
Build a stronger army, avoid the war as far as possible, but build a stronger army because the country has to be protected. So what is to be done is to be done.
And a strong army is a good deterrent to war. If you are being a pacifist, you will become like Ashoka. Disbanded the army, every chieftain became king. So foreign invaders could walk in. Because strong center he was. He went out. Every chieftain became king. Disintegration of the country. He could have become a pacifist. Like Buddha. Hand over the kingdom to somebody else and walk away. That you can do. That you can do. Be a pacifist. If you want to be a pacifist, you can be. Buddha decided. He handed over the kingdom to his cousin. In fact, he didn't hand over. He said, whoever wants to take it can take it. I am off. So the kingdom remained strong. He became Buddha. Prince Siddhartha became Buddha and the kingdom remained kingdom, strong. In Ashoka's case, the kingdom disintegrated. One generation later, Any foreigner could walk in. The people like Chandragupta Maurya, etc., they tried to bring it back into this, but the damage was done. Are you understanding? Experience-oriented learning, what happens? Now when we are looking at it, we are looking at it cognitively. We are examining their experience. This is a cognitive process what we are doing. Therefore, as Kavita said, avoid war as far as possible. And one of the deterrents for war is to have a strong army. People will think twice about attacking. And if they attack, give them a bloody nose. Then they'll stay off. Yeah. Swamiji, but I don't want, I am all for peace. Don't go anywhere near politics or war. Don't go anywhere near that. You're damaging for that. Go, become a saint. I won't even say become a Vedantin. Because Vedanta is more objective. This person is not objective. Go, become a saint. Yeah. I won't even say run an NGO because there also is difficult. So, Vedanta is bringing about this cognitive change, understanding level change. That's all there is there in Vedanta. I see myself as a finite being, therefore suffering, samsari in short. Existential issues, all that I described earlier, summed up in one word, samsari. Whether you are single or married, it doesn't make a difference. You are samsari. And even when I take myself to be a samsari, the Shruti, the Shastra, looks upon me as asamsari, nitya muktaha. So what is the teacher's job? To transfer the Shruti's vision and make it your vision. What is your job? To make it your vision, okay? To understand the teaching and make it your vision. Yeah. That's all the process that is there in Vedanta. In fact, it's not a process. It's cognitive. Nothing to be done here, something to be understood. Then what is to be done? What is to be done is in terms of taking care of the mind, developing the objective mind where you can appreciate all this. The thinking mind, not the only feeling. Feeling is good to have. Think clearly, feel deeply, act decisively. That's a mature mind. But if you feel deeply without thinking clearly, you are in a mess. Yeah, you're in a mess. Because what you call deep feeling will be all sorts of mixtures coming in. Oh. You'll be victimized by your own feeling. Think clearly, feel deeply, act decisively. So that you can understand the truth when it is being explained, unfolded. Like all these last words. Each word can be a contemplative word. Each word deserves time and effort on your part to be thinking about it. Because that cognitive thing has to happen inside you. I have explained it. I have unfolded it. Have you got it? Has it entered? Are you Shrutam Brahma or Avagatam Brahma? Brahma Sutra's talk in the 4th Sutra it talks about, no? I am Shrutam Brahma but nato Avagatam Brahma. I have heard about Brahman but I have not understood it yet. Therefore, Swamiji, what should I do to understand it? What should you do to understand? What should you do to understand? One thing the Shastra says, Pavanah Punyena Shravanam Kuryat. Pavanah Punyena means Punah Shravanam Kuryat. Listen to it again until you understand, and take care that Viveka, Vairagya, Shat Sampatti, Mumukshutvam is there in me in better measure. Is my Viveka enough? Viveka can start with simple discriminative understanding of things. This is this, this is this. To all the way to Sakshi Bhavam. All the way is Viveka. Vairagya minimum optimum level is objectivity. You need not walk away from everything. That's not necessary. But objectivity is necessary. Samadama, your mind, etc., emotion, thinking. Dama, the physical discipline. क्या करूँ, कंट्रोल नहीं हो पाते हैं. It's a good ad. Nobody can eat just one. Who said nobody can eat just one? Of course I can eat just one. Yeah, how said? What do you mean nobody can eat just? It's a good ad. It's a good ad line. Yeah. Samadama, titiksha, uparati, that inner quietude. All the time. Yeah. Inner quietude, uparati. Shraddha, giving benefit of doubt to the Shastra. Samadhanam, forbearance, acceptance of people for what they are. That gives you that inner peace. So all this together, and a strong desire for moksha, your commitment to moksha, how strong is that? Then some, like the Shastra talks about, some Guru Seva, this, that, etc. Not that the Guru requires a lot of Seva, okay? I'm too independent to require Seva. In that sense. Yeah, but work, of course, you can do with some help. Like how people come and help me around for my Vedic Wisdom Festival, etc. Yeah. और क्या बात है? बस, if this much is there, Vedanta will be clear. Because the whole thing is cognitive. So the work is in terms of getting the mind ready, which will naturally involve a life of Parama Yoga, which will naturally involve some Japa, Dhyanam, etc. So those are all secondary sadhanas. Remember that camp, primary sadhana, secondary sadhana. Yeah. Getting your mind ready, etc., secondary sadhana. Primary sadhana is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. And you work on this, before you know it, you'll find, Hare, everything is fine. Everything is fine. I'm fine. How is the world? Miserable. How are you? Great. Yeah. That's how it is. Think it over, and I want you all, especially this class, okay? Then this thing like, Nirgunam, Nishkriyam, Nityam, Shuddham, Buddham, Tata, Muktam, all those words, I want you all to really think about it, contemplate on it this week. Okay? If you are clear, great. Otherwise, next class, ask me the questions about it. Okay? I really want you to spend some time thinking on it. Okay? Because it's not more and more verses, more and more classes that will help. It is this contemplation on it that will help. Think about it, reflect about it. See how it is feasible. See if there are any arguments against what I have said. I'll be very happy if you bring some arguments against it. Okay? Because that shows your thinking. You don't have to manufacture arguments. It has to come really within you. Okay? So good place to stop. We still have about 7-8 minutes, but that's okay. Okay. So But he is still young, have a great time. Thank you. Om Tat Sat.